I found as well with my wife was that on the one hand, you're told that to give them independence and freedom, and you want that, but at the same time, there's still a instinct, I think, especially for the mother, to be like on hand at all times and just keeping an eye on them.
Yes, yeah, it is. It's hard because like I want him to. I try not to like hover too much, and I want him to like explore and see things, but like. And you're like, oh, this is dangerous. Everything you touch, you seem to find everything that is dangerous. How is this happening?
They're magnets for danger.
Yeah.
Do you know, when my first was born in 2017, I had a friend come round and he already had two, and they're a few years ahead. And he walked in my house before the kids, and he just said, right, can I just move this? Can I move this? Can I do this? Can I do this? He said, in about 6 months' time, you're going to have to completely redo your house, because everything that you have right in here, all the coffee tables, all the kitchen counters, it's a complete game change, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Right. And as soon as they can start to open the drawers and, grabbing everything off the shelves and
Yeah, we're expecting our third in December.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah. And it's really true. Like, you see these like pictures and friends tell you, I've got a lot of friends with three kids. And they'll say the first one, you're all uptight and you're worrying about everything. And then the second one's a bit feral because you're still worrying and that thing. Right. And then the third one is just completely chill because you are as well. They feed off that energy and they reflect how you are.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, because that has gone in the exact order that my kids are in. I'm hoping this third one's going to be a bit more relaxed. Yeah. There we go, apparently.
Like everything, you're researching everything. What products? What's this? Oh my gosh, he's got this rash, this bump. And then by the fourth one, you're like, all right, is there blood? Is he breathing? All right, we're fine.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah. And I think from a, I don't know whether I should probably say this, but from a dad's perspective, I had a daughter first, and I'm still, think about her quite, adore her. My son came along, and then it was like, if he falls over and cuts his face, it doesn't matter too much. So we'll see. We don't know what we're going to have with number 3, so we're going to leave that as a surprise again.
Oh, how fun! Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah. But Gretchen, thank you so much for joining me. I think, what are we at? 2:00 your time.
Yep.
So it's 7:00 here. So right slap bang in the middle of the day. So apologize for that. So I want to basically get to know you a little bit more, if you don't mind. I've done a little bit of research, obviously, on YouTube and the old school videos that are available. But yeah, just a little bit about yourself and everything, and then we'll move through to your CrossFit background, and then we can talk about the IF3, which is a major reason, I think, why it would be really cool to have you on and just to chat about that, because I've always had, from our perspective, it's the BF3 in our country where I am, and I've always had my eye on it, and I've really thought it was a really cool idea and concept, and to legitimize what we do as a sport. And I just want to pick your brains about it and understand all about it, really. But if you don't mind, so taking you back, like Kittelberger, that's your maiden name, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Kittelberger is my maiden name. I'm married, but I kept the maiden name just because of all the, with IF3 and all the things I've done in CrossFit. It just made it easier for people to remember and understand who I was.
Yeah. So it's a German name, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Have you done any, do you know much about your ancestry? Have you looked into that at all?
Not a ton. And it's funny because when I always say that I should, because now I travel more in Europe, right, with the IF3. When I go to Germany, people always ask, or not even in Germany, just in Europe in general, people ask. And I'm like, I don't know. But, my family's been in America for a while, like, great grandparents, whatever. But I don't actually know, right, like where in Germany they're from originally.
No, I had a quick look earlier. And what I do know is there's only 163 individuals in the US with that surname, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's quite a small pocket of people. So there you go. I don't know who that is, but that's fine. And then you got Barry there saying hello. So cool. So growing up, whereabouts did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up in upstate New York, Rochester, New York.
Okay.
So it's close. We're like an hour from like the border to Canada.
Cool.
So really cold winters and
Mm.
kind of moderate summers, but it like really it snows from like say October to like May.
Right. Okay. Right. Lovely. Yeah. So you are north.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I've got a friend lives in Minnesota, so
Mhm.
she's relatively similar in terms of climates. She talks about the snow quite a lot as well.
Yeah.
So New York, and was it a typical upbringing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was really nice because I have a brother and a sister, and then my mom has four sisters and my dad has three brothers. All of them
Wow.
are, married with kids, and most of them were local to Rochester. So growing up, I had like all my extended family was really local. My grandparents on both sides were there. So we had a big family growing up and lots of cousins and all of that. Um, I spent a lot of time as I got older. I was a gymnast, so training for gymnastics.
Mm.
So a lot of my time was spent in the gym as I got older.
Yeah. No, I was gonna ask about that, the gymnastics side. My daughter, she's 8 now. We've kind of backed off a little bit from gymnastics, just the volume of work
Mhm.
that she was required, and she's really excelled in jiu-jitsu. So we've kind of put her into that a bit more. And she loves it, and she does CrossFit at the gym, and she does all sorts of stuff. But the gymnastics, what age did you do that up? And was it college
Mhm.
you carried on, didn't you? So it was a
Yes.
longer term thing for you.
Yeah, I actually got a scholarship to college for gymnastics. So continued it
Amazing.
through NCAA, was a Division One athlete and did that for 4 years. Which, was a great experience. It's fun being
Mm,
a college athlete. Obviously, collegiate athletics now with NIL and all of that is a completely different ballgame, right? Than it
mm,
was when I was competing, but still an amazing experience to get to compete and represent your school.
absolutely. And what years were you at college?
So whew, it's crazy that I'm like, oh my god, it's been so long. But
Yeah,
I guess I started school in 2004 and then graduated 2008. Yeah, so 04
right.
to 08.
Lovely. Great years, eh? I
Yeah,
so I turned 40 this year.
same, same.
Oh, good. The amount of people that I've invited on that have turned 40 this year, we've got a little club going. Um, yeah, I always talk about like from like university, so '03 to sort of 10 was like the
Mhm.
glory years of music, of culture, of sport, of everything. But everyone says that about their like
About 10
late
years,
teens, early
yeah.
20s, isn't it? Cool. So gymnastics, and obviously, as my wife did gymnastics to a degree till she was 12, fell off a beam, snapped her wrist, went into synchronized swimming, competed at the Olympics at 2012. My daughter went into gymnastics. Now I know only by proxy the discipline and the volume that has to go into gymnastics to excel, even to like a regional kind of level. You have to be exceedingly good. Um, were you aware when you were growing up, were you aware of the of how hard you were working towards your goals in gymnastics? Was it something that you just had, or was it something that you had to work at?
I think a lot of it was intrinsic, right? Like it was really important to me. Like I love gymnastics. Gymnastics was
Mm,
my first love and always will be, right? Um, So I think I naturally just wanted to work hard at it because I loved it so much. And then you
mm,
have these goals, right? Like I think every little gymnast at some point dreams of going to the Olympics, right? And whether that becomes as you get older and you realize whether it's realistic or not, but like that's, the big dream and the driving factor for a lot of little kids. And then as you get older, like, okay, you have your goals each year. There's in the US, there are like levels in gymnastics. So whatever I want to win states or regionals or nationals at my level or qualify to these events. Um, and then I get older and like, okay, I want a scholarship to college. So you
mm.
knew in a sense, like, yeah, this is hard. Like you understand that it's hard. Like you're there during the school year training 4 to 5 hours a day. In the summer, you train like 8 hours a day. So you knew like I'm giving a lot of time to this.
Yeah.
Um, but, like, for me, it was something that I loved so much, so it never I think as a kid you don't know as a kid, you don't know any better, right? Like, you don't
Mm, yeah.
realize maybe it's not, like, what normal people are doing, but you love it so much, and that becomes your friend group and all of that. So it's just sort of something, it just becomes like a lifestyle.
That's the trick, I think, with anything really, as adults as well, but especially as like being a parent, you can reflect on things that you felt as a kid that worked for you. And sometimes you say, oh, I wish, and we realize at some point our parents weren't superheroes. They didn't know everything.
Yeah.
I wish my parents would have done this with me. You sound like me. I'm very fortunate. I don't really have many of those. But one thing that I am aware of was my wife's parents pushed her, challenged her to work harder in sport. Neither of my parents had a background in sport, so the contrast between her parents that were British champions and Commonwealth champions in weightlifting, and then my parents that they worked bloody hard at their jobs, but they weren't into sport. So what I feel like I can pass on is that work ethic towards the sport. Now, what I know from what you've just said, if it becomes a way of life, if it becomes something they value, they enjoy, they get a lot out of, then that's the sport for them, not the one that I want them to do. And they're so young still. So my reservation, and you can correct me here if I'm wrong, with gymnastics, it's the average age of a gymnast at the Olympics has definitely got older. I seem to remember watching gymnastics growing up, and it was 16, 17-year-olds consistently. And I think we're like mid-20s now.
Yeah.
Do you think that's been intentional with training programs and like maturity and to like a bit of lifestyle changes?
I think, I don't know if it was intentional on the part of the coaches, right? But I think there's a lot of just different environmental or a lot of factors that have gone into it. One, I think at least in the US, right, the changes with the collegiate rules where now you can be essentially a pro, right? You can make money in college. Now you're seeing these elite gymnasts, though. So didn't work out for Simone Biles, but like the Suni Lees, the Jordan Childs, the Jade Carries, they can go to college and still do elite gymnastics. And then they can kind of decide like, hey, I'm still competing, 4 years after the Olympics, because you've got your 4 years in college. Like, I still have my skills. And then they try for a second Olympic team. So, and in that time period in college, you learn a little bit different way of training. You listen to your body a little more. So they've learned how to kind of elongate their careers. So I think that's part of it. Yeah, obviously, just like because it was my era, it was like 16, 17, where those are your peak years. And you're over the hill. College is your fun time, like, to still do gymnastics, but it's not the same level. Like, and now we've gotten smarter, right, about preserving bodies and the repetitions and the numbers and training in a smart way, and pacing fleet. And I think too, the way the code of points has changed in gymnastics, right, which has really led to the success of people like Simone Biles when we went to that open-ended code and the difficulty that you need to have to be competitive now with someone like Simone. Like, her skills are insane, but the younger bodies, they're not strong enough yet, right? You need to go through now because you need to have that muscle mass and you need to have that strength. If you want to do a triple double, right, or your Chenko double pike, like, no one's doing it on this prepubescent body that doesn't have any muscle. Right. Like, so now they've had to get better at nutrition and training, like strength training. And the bodies need to be a little bit older and more robust to be able to do these high level skills.
For sure. Definitely. It's funny because the explosive sports like Olympic lifting or weightlifting, I'm a weightlifting coach here where I am. Like I said, my father-in-law won the Commonwealth Games. We tend to tail off 4:30, that explosive power, that tends to tail off, and we get the strength sports coming into play like powerlifting and the stronger ones. With yourself, so I'm just looking at the time frame here. So you competed until you were in college until 2008. Did you continue to compete in gymnastics after that, or did you kind of end at 2008?
Yeah, ended at 2008. And like, there's not really anything, especially at that time. There's not really anything competitively for you to do in gymnastics after that. There's not a pro league. So unless you were going to do like Cirque du Soleil or something, there's not really anything to do. Nowadays, right, there are girls that go back to elite and try to keep competing, but that was definitely not a thing in my era. So I did not go back to gymnastics after that. That was the end. My last college meet, like, and you knew, right? You knew the last college meet, this is my last time doing gymnastics. But then I found CrossFit shortly after that, a year or so after that, and then got into that as, was maybe my filler replacement. Next.
Absolutely. So, and just before we move on to that, what did you, I know that you're an attorney, what did you do at college as your degree?
So actually in undergrad, psychology was actually my major. And then, after that went on to law school. So I'm sure it's probably different in the UK, but in the US, you have to do 4 years of like undergrad, like general, whatever you want your major to be. It doesn't really matter for law school. And then law school is a separate 3 years after that.
Right. Okay, cool. Right. Okay. So that was 08 to 11, let's say.
Yep. 2011 is when I graduated school. Yeah.
Great. Cool. Lovely. And that coincides lovely to 2011 because I believe that was your first year as a games athlete.
It was, yes. What? Yeah, I actually, because that was the summer of 2011. So I just graduated law school. And so you have to take the bar exam, right, to officially become a lawyer. And the bar exam was the same weekend as the games. So
wow.
And they offer the bar twice a year. You can take it, in the summer, or then they have a February bar. And I decided, I'm like, well, I'm going to skip the bar exam. Like, there's no way. I don't know if I'll ever make the CrossFit Games again. Like, I can take the bar in a couple months. So I didn't take the bar exam and went to compete at the games instead. And then I took the bar the following February.
I love that. Yeah. That's the athlete in you, isn't it? Coming through. So a couple of things. Firstly, I hear about the bar exam. I watched Suits, so I'm a professional lawyer. And my friend of mine was a lawyer years ago. He said about the bar. What do you do in the bar? Is it literally an exam? You sit down and you do an exam. That's what it is, right? Okay. And what does bar stand for?
I don't think it really stands for anything. It's just that's what they call it. Yeah.
Right,
like then when you pass, you're a member of the state bar. Like, you're a member of I'm Virginia, so the member of the Virginia State Bar. I actually have no idea what it's supposed to mean, but that's what they call it. Yeah.
Oh, that's that. I'm like I said, I'm a professional kind of lawyer as well. It was in Breaking Bad. Saul Goodman has to transfer get another bar in another state so that he can be a lawyer in another state. So that's how that works in the US, right? Okay.
Yes, every state, so every state has their own bar. So there's two portions to it. There's the state portion that's specific to your state, and then there's a multi-state portion that everybody takes the same multi-state portion.
Right.
But because all the states in the US have different laws. So you have to know things that are specific to your state. But then there are some things, right, that are national or federal laws, and the multi-states about that stuff.
Yeah, that it makes sense, doesn't it? Really. Cool. So you've done your bar in the February. Now, discovering CrossFit. Can you remember the moment that you stumbled upon CrossFit?
Yes, actually, it was an old teammate of mine from the University of Maryland. I was back watching a gymnastics meet, and she had come to watch too. So we were sitting in the stands, just talking about life, what we were doing. And she was like, "Oh, you should try this CrossFit thing. You would really like it. I think you'd be great at it. There's elements of gymnastics in it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And, this was a girl who was a couple of years older than me in school. So, looked up to her as a role model. So then from that, she told me about it. I went and looked it up. Just went to main site back then, CrossFit.com. They had the workout of the day. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to do what it says here, workout of the day. So I figured it out. Write it down on a piece of paper, head to the rec center on campus. And sometimes I'd get there, right, and I'd forget, and I'd be like, okay, I watched the video, the strict press, but I don't remember, do I not use my legs? Do I use my legs, right? In the very beginning, no idea. And trying to figure it out. And I would just do the workouts at the rec center. And I didn't understand in the beginning, because back then, they didn't post like a guy's weight and a girl's weight. There's only one. So it'd say like Fran, right? 2059 thrusters, 95 pounds. And I'd be like, oh my God, like I'm never gonna be able to do 95-pound thrusters, like whatever. So, you know, I'd do what weight I could, but no concept, because I wasn't going to an affiliate or anything, right? Like no concept that there were scale, like, you know, that the women usually did a different weight or all these different things. You just kind of going at it. And then eventually there'd be sometimes when I would go to the rec center and there'd be somebody who'd be doing the exact same thing as me, right? Because I was just doing main site and I did it religiously, whatever it was that day, right? The 3 on, 1 off. Like I didn't skip, I didn't cherry pick. Like I was like locked in. But I came across this guy who would be doing the same thing. And eventually we got to chatting. And sometimes we'd end up working out together. He'd kind of like let me jump in. And turns out an affiliate was opening in the town where my law school was, Charlottesville, Virginia. And then so he introduced me to that group. And we, you know, they were like, oh, just stick around. And, you know, you're a broke college kid. I'm like, I don't want to pay for this, you know, whatever. But they're not charging me right now. Like they were new. They're just trying to get people kind of in the door. So I stuck around for a while. And then they were sort of like, well, we need coaches. And I was like, well, I'll go take the level 1, you know, and then eventually if I coach there, eventually I'll get the money back from that level 1. That's pretty expensive for me right now. But I did. And then started, you know, helping them out at the gym. And then they were like, you know, you could compete in this. And then I was like, oh, well, this is it, right? This is my thing.
Yeah, here we go.
You know, and they showed me videos of probably like the 2007 games, 2008. And I looked at that and I was like, well, I can do that. And I was like, I think I can win that, which turns out I couldn't, but you know.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so what year did you do your L1?
Gosh, it must have been, it probably was 2010.
Right.
It had to have been that, right? Because I started in 2009. But I think it was like a year of doing it on my own in the rec center before I found the gym. And before. So I think it was probably 2010.
And do you remember who took your L1? Were there any notable names?
Oh yeah, it was like, I think Boz was there, Pat Sherwood was there. It was like very like old school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
You know, Boz took mine as well in 2012 in Stockholm.
Okay. Yeah.
Because there was at that point there was like one a year in the UK, and I'd missed it, so I had to book on. So traveled to Sweden to do it. And do you know what? I couldn't think of a better situation for me to do it. I traveled away. I was on my own. You know, I knew no one. I rocked up, and a couple of things happened over there in Stockholm. When I turned up, I had no idea who Boz was.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. And then I was thinking, this guy, he's pretty good, nifty. He knows what he's doing. He can move pretty well, and he did all right. And then I went back to the hotel room on the Saturday night and just sort of Googled him, and I thought, oh shit, okay, here we go. And the second day, I had a lot more not respect, but I was like, starstruck on the Sunday afterwards, which was fun. And then I went back a couple of years later to it was CrossFit Nordic. And it was during the Open. It was my birthday kind of trip, and I'd been doing CrossFit for a few years then, so I was basically, professional, knew everything about it, and went in there, and it was the Open, and a young lady came up to me and was asking my opinion on wall balls, and I was like, and I gave her the lowdown. I coached her a little bit. And then 3, 2, 1, go, and it was 14.4. It was the one that we repeated a little while ago with the row, wall ball, toaster bar, cleans, muscle ups. And she absolutely destroyed it. Got back onto the row the second round. I was like, "Who is this?" And I've realised it was Bjork Odin's daughter, who you'd have competed against. I didn't have a clue who it was at the time, and I got so embarrassed. I had to go back afterwards and say, "Is she still here?" Because I want to say how much of an idiot. But yeah, it'll always, CrossFit Nordic will forever be a place for me it's my CrossFit Mecca for me.
Yeah.
But no, so the L1 does hold a special place for everyone, really. So your coach or whoever it was at the affiliate told you that it was you can compete in this. It's we're doing this. What was the transition like going from doing main site to competition training at that stage, was there much of a jump?
So not really. At that point, right? Because that was like 2010. So that was my first year trying to compete. And I didn't really do that year, didn't really do anything too much. I think, at that point I was like at the affiliate, right? So I was doing more of their programming. They weren't following main site, they were just programming in-house. So following that, and the owner of the affiliate would do like some extra programming for me. But that was kind of it. Like back then, I feel like it was the time where people were just sort of figuring it out.
Yeah.
So back then, the qualifying process for the games was sectionals. They had sectionals, and then from your sectional you went to regionals, and then regionals you went to the games. So we didn't really have expectations, I guess, but I went to sectionals, which was like this DC, I think it was DC, Maryland, Virginia sectional, maybe West Virginia too. And I won that sectional, and I was like, oh, this is great, whatever. Yeah. I'm going to definitely make it to the games. And then we went to the regional, which was in Ohio. And I think I ended up 5th, and the top 3 went. So I didn't make it in 2010. Yeah. And then it was after that in 2011, I started to reach out to people who had made the games before that I knew. So it was Christy Adkins, who was she was Christy Phillips at the time. Nicole Gordon, who was a seminar staff, but at the time, like games athletes, and like, Jeff and Maggie Tincher. And like these people from the area who are all like were competing. And they all like wrote back, and I said, well, I want to make the games this year. What do I need to do different? And everybody wrote back to me and like gave me great answers. But Nicole Gordon's husband, Jeremy, at the time owned CrossFit Hampton Roads down in Virginia Beach, which is like 3 hours from where I was. Actually, not even that. Where I guess if I was living in Charlottesville at the time, it's even closer. But she's like, look, my husband does programming for athletes. Like he'll offer a program for you for the year. Like, no, free of charge. Just if you like the results that you get, then we ask that you kind of stick with it. And so I was like, well, okay. Like, I guess now I have like a real coach. So started working with Jeremy, leading up to that. It was still, I think sectionals went away after that, but it was the Open. 2011 was the first year of the Open. So I went Open regionals games. So worked with him then through the rest of that season. And that was my first year making the games. So then he was my coach through all my competitive seasons, through all my games appearances.
Amazing. And I won't ask you what your first games was like. My question will be, what was do you have a defining moment for yourself at the games across the 4 years? Was there one moment that really stands out for you?
Man, I guess like 2 things. One thing I was really excited about, 2011, my first year, they made cuts, and they cut like throughout the weekend. There were like multiple cuts where they cut it down to people. And the final cut was to 12 for like the last workout was to 12 people. And I had a really, really great workout, the workout before the final cut. It was, I don't even know if I remember exactly what it was now, but it was like double unders and overhead squats and like handstand push-ups. And then you had to push a heavy sled across like the tennis stadium. And a lot of people, a lot of the girls couldn't move the sled. And like, you had like, the thing about it is like, I had no idea going into it. Like, am I going to be able to move the sled? But it turns out I could do it well. And I finished 4th on that workout. And that bumped me into the top 12 to make that final cut for the final workout. And that to me is like probably maybe my favorite or best moment of my entire CrossFit game. The other one I would say was the squat clean, like speed ladder in 2014. And not that I'm terrible at squat cleans, but doing that and jumping on the little podium thing and hearing the crowd scream, like that was like one of my favorite moments.
Yeah, that visual as a fan is often cited as like the inspirational one, where the athlete comes in, you've got your bridges, your Tia Toomey pictures when they're kind of, giving the full frontal. It is. And it's one of those where if the media get it right, the viewer will feel like it's them doing it. You can really imagine what it's like being on that pedestal when you jump up and finish. And obviously it's the end of a race, isn't it? So it's quite entrenched in fitness racing, which is lovely. And to be able to have done that yourself must be incredible memories. Cool. So 11 to 14 was at the games. Now, from 2014 onwards, how did your CrossFit journey go after 14?
Yeah, so I was not like one of those people who like, now I think people are like, I'm retiring and there's announcements and that. I wasn't like that for me. And I think people did that less, right? Back when I was back in the day, a decade ago. Because I still competed in 2015, but and I went to regionals in 2015. I think I finished 10th, didn't make the games. And I knew at that regionals when I stepped onto the starting mat for the very first event and I didn't have like adrenaline. I didn't have nerves.
Right.
Nervous. It was like I didn't care. And I think I knew like that was a startup point where I was like, I'm burned out. I'm not into this. Like I'm not here for this anymore. Like I think so it was kind of for me sort of like more of a gradual thing. And I did some fun stuff. Like I did Wadapalooza as a team a couple of times after that. I might have even done it as an individual once or twice. So I like still did some stuff, but it just wasn't. It was just sort of like that was like the beginning of the end where I was like, all right, I'm done. My heart's not in it anymore. So yeah, that's kind of that. And then it was different, I think, too, really for me. I mean, there was a lot of different things, but also for me, I worked for HQ at the time. I was
What was your role?
I was one of the attorneys for CrossFit HQ.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I worked as one of their attorneys. I was laid off in 2016. A lot of people think all the layoffs started with the media and like whatever that was 2018 and 19. That's not true. No. They started like 2 years before that. But so anyways, I think partly too, like losing the job at HQ, right, when I was laid off, and then that like changed my perspective on a lot of things. And then starting the IF3 and all of that, where I was just like, all right, the competitive days are done. I still try to train hard, but I don't want to compete. And then really still like didn't spend as much time training, just as life changed. And then once I got pregnant, that now we're talking like this was recently, right? So pregnant, 2020, end of 2023, 2024. Like, okay, now I'm training for a different purpose. And then after the baby, it's like, okay, now I'm training to get back to what is the point I'm training to get back to? Because it's not games shape, right? I'm probably never going to snatch 185 again unless I put a significant amount of time that I'm not prepared to do, right, into it. But where do I want to be and where do I want to? So there's kind of this whole journey to it.
Yeah, and do you know, I've talked to my wife about this. She went through a very similar thing when she retired from her sport. She was a professional athlete. It was full time. And then nothing, boom, retired, no aftercare, no transitionary period, no nothing. So mentally, it's like not the same, but you can see why when people leave the army, they've been daily structured, disciplined, focused. There's a goal orientation. You're part of a group, and then you're put out to pasture, and you're like, what next? What now? She tried to hand in all sorts of things. So for you being with our training, this is my point. I got there in the end.
Yeah.
I talked to my wife yesterday about when it would appear that when let's call them professional. I know they're not particularly professional in terms of, legitimately. When professional CrossFit athletes retire now, they find it very, very difficult, it would appear, to outwardly continue with CrossFit as prescribed. They take a different journey. They go down a speciality route. You take look Dave Lipsome, Camille Bazinet, that all Amanda Barnhart of Brooke Entz, yourself, different routes away from methodology as it's prescribed at the affiliate kind of level that normal folk like me will continue on to do. And I asked my wife about this, and she said, well, our threshold has been so much higher that dialing it in and coming back down to a particular level is really bloody tough. And because your threshold has been so high for exertion, for intensity, for purpose, to then take all of that away and just say you're doing this for health, it doesn't quite add up to the same beauty as someone that's just been doing it 5 days a week, 3 to 5 days a week, going recreationally for health and longevity. So for someone like yourself, that you've competed at the games 4 times, walking back into an affiliate and to train for health and longevity, it doesn't quite have the same punch to it as the fitness racing side of it. I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong with your feeling.
No, I think that's correct, right? It is. It's hard because you're like, oh, you're right. I'm doing these same things, but I'm never going to be as good as I was. Like I can't replicate it. And it would take so much effort and time that I don't have, right? Or don't want to commit to be even close to even a shadow of what I was when I was, 25. So it's tough, like mentally. And then you got to kind of figure out where you want to be. And I think that is why a lot of people go a different direction, or for me. So I actually, more by accident than anything else, got into ballroom dancing because
incredible.
Yeah. So that, and now I compete in that. And that for me is like filled the void. Like that's the thing where I can be, okay, this is the thing. And I'm not good. Let me just say, I'm not good. Like, very beginner level, but I get to go and compete and I have a great time. And it's something that I can like channel my energy into, because it's the thing that I know, right, from gymnastics and from CrossFit, this like the training, the learning process, the improvement process, the getting better. Like, okay, I can start over at this new thing and find fulfillment in this learning and training and growing, right? Where in CrossFit and fitness, like I'm just not going to grow the same way anymore. Like for me, that's the thing I really like, right? This improvement and the learning and the like all of that. But I'm not going to I'm just not. I'm like, like I said, I'm turning 40. I'm not going to get better at snatching, right? I'm probably not going to be able to like meet my max number of pull-ups, unbroken, or max number of, like, I'm just not going to get better. I had a great, amazing peak. I was a games athlete, in my 20s, but I'm not going to find that same thing at 40. But in this new sport, I can kind of improve from where I was. So that for me has been like a great filler. And I still love to train. Still train usually 5 days a week, right?
Awesome.
And but now I cherry pick, right? I work out with friends, or whatever. Like there's just don't put the same value, I guess, on performance. It makes me feel good to move.
Yeah.
I like being able to have strength, and I think it's important, right, to maintain my health. I want my son to see that I'm, working out and understand that movement and fitness and taking care of yourself is important. So there's things there, but it doesn't fulfill me the same way as when I was training, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess it's quite unique with CrossFit that the people at the games are doing exactly, to a degree, exactly what everyone at the gym is doing. So you've got a direct comparison and you are scaling right back. Whereas if you retire from gymnastics, you're not going to be doing beam, bars, floor routines and vault 5 days a week.
No.
You're gone. So, and we're very unique in that sense, I guess, is that you are having to purposefully just go down what we would say the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum. We're getting further away from the fitness and back towards the wellness. And when we've taught in the L1 and we know it, that you want to go that way, if you feel your perception is that you're coming back towards the wellness, it might be a bit of a a head game. And you're absolutely right. Finding value and purpose in another recreation or another sport is really learn and play new sports. It's the essence of what we do. Cool. So brings me on to the IF3. So I was aware of the IF3 through a guy called Stephen Fawcett.
Okay. Yeah.
From early days. So when it was first kind of being talked about and set up. And I'll be perfectly honest, and everyone that watches this show live and retrospectively will know, the purpose of this show, it's called The Base, is because I'm interested in community, the gyms, the affiliates, everything that sprouts out from that, including sport. But my main priority is the base of that pyramid of the community and the people. it's always been that way. I've competed nowhere near your level, like local comps and on a beach with stones and stuff. The sports side of it sort of took a back seat for me when I opened my affiliate in late 2014. At that point, I stepped away from kind of not giving a shit, but prioritizing the sport. I turned 25 or however 30, sorry. Blimey, years are getting away. And my main concern then was the community and the people turning up at 5 o'clock in the morning for and then the coaches and the systems and the timetables, and then my family, and things developed. And I'm guilty a little bit of putting fitness racing to the side for a little while. And recently I've had an epiphany. I've actually opened my ears and listened to some people that I've had on. And I appreciate the value of the racing side of it. Again, the tip of our spear, the people at the top that demonstrate the very extreme of what we do. And I'm not conflating the two. I'm not conflating, the nutrition aspect of what we do with the sport. I know they're very, very different, and that all changes as you go through to the tip of the spear. But I've recently changed my tune a little bit. And one person that helped me do that was my friend Simon Stokes, who actually won the BF3 in his age category, qualified for Euros, but he got a really bad foot injury. He traveled, but he didn't get to compete in Holland, I think it was, a little while ago. And Tammy, who's 13-year-old, she's this phenom out of the north of England, who is doing very, very well at the moment. Had her and her parents on a little while ago, and they helped me as well realize that fitness racing for the younger generation is admirable. I'd got to the point where I was kind of thinking, I'd rather, I'm having to think about the whole community. Why am I bothering to think about the fitness racing? But over the last sort of year or so, I've really changed my tune, and I've repositioned myself. And I remember all along the IF3, the EF3, and the BF3. And I thought, right. And this was a few months ago. And I just dug in and I wanted to know everything I could about it. And the other reason, I will come back to you in a sec, sorry. The other reason I was bringing it up was because of the whole conversation within the CrossFit media about professionalizing the sport, about the athletes getting looked after and protected because of what happened last year. The affiliates going this way, the sport going this way, the media coverage, the WFP, all of this conversation around the fitness racing side of it. And one thing that baffled me was that the IF3 didn't get any mention. There was no discussion around it. And I think, from my perspective, I think what it was is because the overwhelming majority of the media is US based in our space. And I'd like your opinion on this. I think, and I've written some notes on this, you are very unique in people that I've talked to within the CrossFit world, where you've excelled and competed at a very, very high standard. And you said it yourself, you wanted to compete at the Olympics one day. Now, the gymnastics is a truly global sport that's not owned by anyone. It's not a private company. And there's a direct route, and there's governing bodies internationally, nationally, and locally. A lot of Americans aren't aware of that structure across the board with other sports, because the big American sports are owned, they're operated, they're companies, they're profit-making machines, and it's very insular within the US. I talk to a lot of Americans every day. I'm on a number of WhatsApp groups, and this is a conversation that I've had with them recently. Making them understand how governance works across the board with global sports is quite a tricky concept to explain. And I think the gap in the discussion and the inclusion of the IF3 might be that the media out there, because they're so US based, haven't come to terms with what the IF3 can offer and is offering. Do you think there's any truth behind that, Or am I talking rubbish?
Oh, yeah, no, I think 100%. That is spot on, right? Because like when we try to even from like our federation in the US has had such a hard time getting traction because now I think there are multiple reasons for that, but one of them being like we don't get it over here in the US. We don't understand this model of sport. When I go to Europe, right, or we talk to a European anyone in Europe, right, trying to start a new federation or anything, and you say, okay, well, this federation model, and you explain how it works, like, well, duh, right? This is just how sport works. This is what we do, right? Because it's so well known in Europe that this is the model of sport, right? This is how sports works. They have federations and clubs and all of this. And everybody just gets it, right? In Europe, and I think in Asia as well, more so. Africa's a little different. There's not quite as much infrastructure, but they understand it. But in the US, right, we just don't get it because we have, like you said, the big leagues, right? Like the NFL, the NBA, all of that. So they think, oh, this professional model of sport, but not necessarily understanding that there is, right, that there is NFL, but there's also a USA football, and those guys are going to be in charge of picking the team that's going to go do flag football in LA in 2028, right?
Yeah.
And there's a USA basketball, and they're the ones who are deciding who's going to the Olympic team. And now it's a lot of the NBA players, but they have a relationship and a connection, but it's that governing body, and those do exist.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, yes, they don't understand it. Like if you were in a sport like gymnastics or weightlifting growing up, you get it a little better because you have USAW, USAG that are the big governing bodies. There's not a pro league. But yeah, I think you are spot on, and I think that is the reason.
Right. So if that is the case, then that's cool. Well, not cool, but we can work on that, can't we?
Yeah.
When you've been enrolled for quite some time, haven't you, with the IF3?
Yep.
When you heard, I will come back to the IF3. I've just thought of this. When you heard about the World Fitness Project coming around, what were your first thoughts on it?
I think it's always good for athletes to have options, to have ways to make money, to have that. There are things I wish they were doing differently. Like I wish we could have had more conversations with them and collaborated on certain things because it was an opportunity, right? It was an opportunity to do things differently, and particularly in the governance space. So things like, I did try to reach out and didn't get a response, if you're being honest, about like, hey, drug testing. Like, look, guys, we could partner on this, and we can make let's see if we can be the only event to have. Let's become a WADA signatory. We'll get you this WADA approved drug testing. You can use it as, this big thing that differentiates you. Like, I think there were opportunities to do things like that unfortunately didn't come to fruition. I probably am like a lot of people. I'm hoping it's going to succeed, but have doubts. But I think, I do wish that I think there was an opportunity for them to really separate themselves on the governance side, and I don't think they have. So it looks, like another event, which is unfortunate to me. That's the part that makes me sad.
Yeah, I guess like when it first came around and the brand came out and there was discussions around it, I think there was a lot of positivity around it in the media. I think everyone was really keen. Like, we love watching fitness racing. If there's going to be more of it, then fucking brilliant. We get to watch it as viewers and spectators and lovers of the sport. But we do have to remember, just like CrossFit, it's still in its infancy. A lot of the big sports have had 100 years to get things right. CrossFit's had 20 from methodology. It's 20th year of the games this year coming up. So it's still early. It's still really and WP are within their still first year. IF3 are 10 years. Like we're still developing. Weightlifting's been around for fucking forever. But one thing that I've recently set up the national governing body on the island where I live. We're a separate sovereign state that runs itself, the Isle of Man. And I've set up weightlifting as a sport, and the amount of governance, regulation, inclusion, drug testing, anti-doping, all of the rigmarole that very, very well. I've had to establish that and make sure we've got protocols in place over the last couple of years. And having done that just for weightlifting, and being a powerlifting coach as well, and a CrossFit coach, and having owned affiliates in the past, I wish there was more discussion around it for the fitness racing side of it, because I think it could be a really good answer to what a lot of people are after, especially the athletes. And I mean, we both know, I've got the list in front of me. But rule creation, competition structure, athlete development, anti-doping measures, promotion, and governance. The promotion side is is a massive part, a massive win for people if they're involved with the IF3. And so, like you said, I think it was potentially a missed opportunity, but probably still open.
Yeah.
Open. There's never a reason why it can't, happen.
Yeah.
The other one, and this is potentially gonna be a competitor in some respects, is Hyrocks. So obviously Hyrocks are trying to vie for the Olympics as well. So are they seen to the IF3 as a competitor in order to get to be a functional fitness event for the Olympics?
I don't know if I'd say, I mean, I guess in the sense that every other sport is a competitor, right? There's only so many spots in the Olympics. The way they're adding new sports to the Olympics now is every iteration, right? The host country gets to pick basically 5 new sports that they want to add. Obviously in collaboration with the IOC, right? They got to make the decision together, but the host country has a big amount of say. So really, if we want to talk about, okay, we're in competition with any sport that's not currently included in the Olympics that has a governing body and all of this stuff. Because it's just for that iteration, right? We saw breakdancing in Paris. That's not going to be in for LA. That was a pick from like the,
yeah, I think that Australian lady had something to do with that.
But we'll see flag football and we're going to see lacrosse in LA. Those are very American sports in terms of their global interest. I don't know, like they're going to have to battle to try to be, and they're going to fight to try to be in Brisbane in 2032, which is where we want to be. So like all of those sports are competitive in a sense. So if you want to look at it in that way, in terms of like governance, it's very interesting to me. Hyrocks does say this, and there's ways, right? You have their brand, like CrossFit is a brand. So you look at, you're like, okay, well, how are you going to get in the Olympics? You haven't set up, to any of our knowledge, an international federation or any national federations. So and that's a process that takes time. There are certain rules now you can't shorten the time, because there were people who found a way to bypass the rules. So that we're talking like if you set everything up instantly today, you're at least 3 years away from your very first level of recognition, because that is the minimum of time you need to be established for. And they have nothing, as far as I know, in terms of their own independent governance. So their only other option then is to go under an existing sports federation. So they essentially have a discipline of another sport that's already in the Olympics. So something like world athletics, right? Track and field.
Okay.
That would be their only option that I see as a viable route for them, is a pathway. And they could do it, right? I mean, the same way we could approach track or gymnastics or weightlifting and say, we want to be a discipline of weightlifting. Now that's what we've not chosen to do, because our community, like our federations and our group, have sort of decided like we want more control over the sport than that. Like we feel like it's a risk, right? If you go under another sport, you're there, and they have their own board of directors, their own vision, like control a lot of what happens. And we felt like it should really come from the community. But that being said, it doesn't mean Hyrocks is not going that way, right? The issue with that, for them, or the thing that would be hard, I mean, for us as well, it gets you a lot of things fast if you can make that relationship, which usually is not fast, getting someone to agree to add you as a discipline in their existing federation. Then they have to agree to add you as an Olympic sport and put you forward as one of their disciplines. But they have a limited number of athletes, right? Each sport is given, here's your athlete limit. So now they want to add you, let's say track adds you, Hyrocks, as a discipline. Where are they pulling the athletes from? They have to pull something out, right, from another discipline, or take out something else. And then now you've got all this infight.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to see. I don't know what they're doing.
No.
Or if it's just a something they say. I'm not really sure like how big of a deal it is for them. But Yeah, that's the route I would say that makes sense for them, and if that's really what they're trying to do. But that's, that's a very much a lot of networking, very political. Like
Yeah.
it's not saying it's right or wrong, right? We could, if maybe there's someday our federations turn around and say we want to do that, and then we explore it.
Yeah.
It can be faster for sure than setting up everything from scratch, but it's just a matter of, I think, what's important to you, to your community, to your sport.
Yeah, I agree with your sentiment. I didn't know if you had any other opinions that weren't out publicly, you know, about the Hyrocks thing. But I share sentiment. I can't help but think, where are they going to fit in? And I guess from a outside perspective, if you take, I don't know, John and Jenny from Alabama, who have never seen any functional fitness, show them a Hyrocks and show them a functional fitness event, so IF3 event. Are they going to be able to separate the two? Are they going to see them as completely different things? To us that have a good knowledge of it, instantly we'd know the difference. So yeah, that was just a a side note on that, on the Hyrocks thing. So the other two things that I've mentioned, two people, sorry, are Tammy, who's 13, and my friend Simon, who's 58 this year. They are obviously youth or junior, and then masters. What national governing bodies offer is that entry into sport for all age groups. Legitimately, they're protected. The athletes are looked after. There's governance that we're used to seeing in other sports day to day, which I absolutely love. I don't know any open age, or what was the term for 18 to 35?
We call them seniors, right?
Seniors, right? Okay, so like other like weightlifting.
Yep.
Cool. I don't know any senior athletes myself personally that I kind of speak to. Do you see a path forward for the IF3 to recruit athletes alongside the CrossFit season? That big names, is that a goal of the IF3?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily a goal, like a stated goal. Like always, like, of course, does it help? Does it have big names there? And I think we've gone back and forth on it internally, right? In the beginning, there was a very big push, I think, from our federations, from the community. We need bigger name athletes. We need bigger name athletes. I don't know that it's true anymore for necessarily what we're trying to build in general, right? For building the world championships, building all that stuff. Like, does it help on the commercialization side, which is something we also talk about a lot? Okay, how do we commercialize the sport, increase revenues? Like, we need to have a bigger platform to be more relevant and more enticing to the IOC and to the Olympics, because that's a side of it as well. Like, separate from the governance side, like that's something we do have to think about. And in that part, you're like, okay, the big names are going to help there, right? And that will help bring in people. But at the end of the day, if I tell the IOC, like, oh, we had Rich Froning and Matt Fraser, those guys are like, who? I don't know. I don't care. But do you have a federation in Ghana? Because we need some people there, right? Like, so the importance of the big name athletes is more for, right, like, within our community, getting people to look at the sport, know what we're doing. Oh, okay, more people hear about us. It's less important from getting to the Olympics, the getting good governance, making us legitimate side of things. So I wouldn't say it's like a main goal. Like, it's something we think is great when it happens. Would I love to be in a position where we could offer more prize money and attract bigger name athletes? Because that's why they come, right? I think the big name athletes want to be paid, right? They want prize money. They want to have a chance to win prize money. But we just financially aren't there right now.
I will say one thing, that there's not many opportunities, I don't think, for athletes to compete for their country in functional fitness. CrossFit is obviously individual. You get your flag next to your name a lot of the time. Although I'm a bit annoyed that Amy Kringle didn't have the Isle of Man flag, but I'm gonna, forget that. But other than that, the reason the Invitational used to have such a big popularity and following was that it was the flags going against each other. It was this international community of people going against each other, representing their countries. And I think as an athlete in CrossFit, you very, very rarely get to put your country flag on and compete for your country. And I think that is where the recruitment within the IF3 could really be a USP. It's a massive selling point for the IF and EF and BF for me. I think that recruitment at the sport end, at the tip of the spear level, would be that national pride that you're representing your country kind of approach. That would be, I think, for me, the unique selling point for a national governing body to be able to push and represent. And also that's the whole point of the international governing body, national governing body, and regional. But for people that might listen to this and still don't get how that structure kind of works, I often use an example of weightlifting, because it's one that I know and one that most CrossFitters will kind of, be able to get their head around. You've got the IWF at the top that governing internationally, and that's where the IF3 are. Then you've got the regionalized. So you've got, the Americas, you've got the Pacific, you've got European weightlifting. So EWF for European weightlifting. And then you've got the national governing bodies. And it's a direct system, linear system, starts at the top. All the regulations and rules come back down to the club level, all the way linear straight through. That's why the international governing bodies are so damn important. It's for governance globally. And I think one thing that I always discuss is the lack of global regional understanding from a CrossFit perspective. And again, like I said, it's still in its infancy, but I think it's very US centric, which to a degree, I think is part of its brand. And like I said earlier, it's that Americana entrenched thing, which is really cool. That's why I love CrossFit. Like, it's that Americana, red, white, and blue. And it's, all the gubbins and the flyovers and the flags and the army. But to be a legitimate sport, which I don't think CrossFit is, it needs to have that governance system, which is what you guys supply, which is why I love the idea of what you guys do. Do you know how many countries you've got now?
Yeah, we've got it's like 65, I think. And now there's a range. When we say that, we have to remember there's a range of where these federations are in terms of their establishment, right? So we have, a federation in Ghana who it's like, one guy, but he's doing amazing work, right? But the resources they have in Ghana, like he doesn't have all the barbells and all the things, but he's out there with kettlebells and he's got these kids. They do a thing with orphanages, and they've got the kids in the orphanages in Ghana learning these functional movements, and they're doing great work. There's not the resources of a country like Norway, which has been recognized by its Olympic committee. So the sport is, a legitimately recognized sport in Norway, has been since like 2019, where they're getting funding from the government. They pick a true national team every year that is responsible for going to training camps, and that you have obligations on that national team. But they have athletes that have gotten stipends and scholarships from the Olympic Committee of Norway. Like the government is now literally giving money to the athletes to train in the sport. And we see, and that's amazing, right? And like that too, we can see, this is the coolest part for me, right? You see how that has affected not just how well they do within IF3 events, but now how well they're doing in the CrossFit Games. How they have a team that's really been on the podium for how many last couple of years, a Norwegian team won, right? All of those athletes, except Tola, who is not actually a Norwegian athlete, but the other three, they're members of that Norwegian national team. They've all been on the podium at IF3 events. Like they've come up through this system in their country that's supported by the government and has allowed them to really train as professional athletes. And you watch it and you're like, yeah, you got a leg up on everybody else because you've gotten this support to really be the best you can be. So hopefully being able to, do that in many more countries. We've actually got about 22, I think, is the number that are recognized by either their Ministry of Sport or National Olympic Committee.
Brilliant.
And not all governments are, as gracious with their funding, right? As the Nordic countries are. We see a lot of support in the Nordics, which is great. But we've just got Hungary just got their recognition literally a couple of weeks ago. So we're hoping that will soon come with some funding there and, growing the sport there. Mexico a month or so ago got theirs. So there's some cool opportunities that hopefully they'll be able to take advantage of. But, brick by brick, piece by piece, just kind of keep building it and growing this foundation. And it's not even just, you talked about like the base and the community, right? We look at like the juniors, like, okay, you're getting it recognized by the government. Well, now we got opportunities to get it in schools. All of that stuff is connected. Denmark, they do like a boarding school kind of competition or league, and they like got it in the schools that way. And like, kids should be moving and learning functional movements and doing this thing, right? Whether they want to do it competitively or not. But those are the opportunities we can bring in with these national federations.
100%. And I'm glad you said about that, about the not only the Norwegian team, but working with schools and seeing an uptick in the CrossFit space. A couple of reasons why. A friend of mine, Hannah Mitu, who is now working for the BF3 in some capacity, he has done this unthinkable, incredible job in the last few years of establishing a charity base that is accredited and acknowledged by CrossFit. And what it does, it takes disadvantaged kids or kids that have been put to the side. It brings them into gyms. It works with the local councils in the UK. So, local governance systems, and affiliates. And it's this triangle, and it links them all up. It puts these kids, it gives them value, purpose, incentive, community, gets them to do their L1s and L2s, their coaching. And now some of them have made it to the games as teens, and they've gone through this whole value shift and process. And it's all because of their hard work at the academy program that Hannah runs. She's working with the BF3 now. So that school system, getting the kids into something that they can really work hard at and become passionate about and really take pride in, is the essence of governance of sport. It's going into the grassroots and seeing it flourish. I don't know if you keep an eye on soccer or football, as we call it, but the legacy that we've had this year or the last 4 years, we had a massive, massive push of grassroots schemes with soccer in England and Britain about 10, 15 years ago. And now the women's side have just won the Euros. They've in the World Cup champ, and they've runners up in the European. So the last 4 years, they've reached these finals that was unheard of 10 years ago, simply because of the recruitment at a younger age, giving these girls this new pride and this new passion to do this sport and to give funding and purpose and club level governance and incentive. And it's worked its way through. It takes time. It really does, but it does pay off. And I think, like you said about Norway, they're seeing that now. My question to you is, if I'm a CrossFit affiliate owner and I want to get involved and I want to channel some of my people. I've had people ask me about competition, but I don't quite know. We've done all the local comps and they're not really that fussed by them anymore. They're not games athletes just yet. How do I get involved, and what involvement can I have as an affiliate owner with our national functional fitness federation?
So it'll be a little bit different country by country, but most of our national federations, you can be a club of the national federation. And again, it'll be different country by country. Sometimes that just means like your affiliate, your CrossFit gym, right? You can just be like, oh, yep, we're a member. In some countries, I know this is particularly true in the Nordics, you actually kind of have to start a separate nonprofit arm of your gym. And then you can be a club, but that also comes with some advantages, right? In those regions, like to be a club, they get discounts than on equipment because they're a nonprofit, right? Discounts on equipment, you get discounts on your bills, your utility bills, like things like that. But again, that's variable country by country. But definitely, right, become a member of your national federation, encourage your athletes to become members of your national federation. And then there's a whole system of events, right? Again, some countries have more than others, but usually at a minimum, it's some sort of qualifier to a national championship. From the national championship, the top people can then go on to compete either at European championships or the world championships. And we have a world championships for juniors, right? We started with under 12s were new in Hungary. That's a new division. So under 12s all the way up to, yeah, they're so small and so cute and like but it's definitely a learning curve with what where their skill level is. And then all the way up to 65 plus the masters. So we've got the juniors, then your seniors, which is, you know, your open, your individuals, and your masters. And then we have teams right now, teams of 4. Some of our events, like the Asian Championships, does have a pairs competition, but we haven't done a ton with pairs yet. That'll be kind of coming up, I think, more. We're going to try to do more with that because I think that will be the future of if we're looking down the line of the Olympics. Some countries do have, and I don't think it's on there because we tend to just post the nationals on our website. But some countries have, like I know Sweden and Germany have like a club league, right? There's Sweden particularly has a club league. Germany has they have their own league as well. That's more, I don't think theirs as teams. It's more individuals, but for people who aren't quite that level, maybe to make it to nationals, Germany has started a cool thing too, that they're going to have a set test. And now I can't remember the word they're using for it, but it's basically the same workouts every time. So you can actually compare year over year, and it's going to be like weird thing. So they have something like that. So there's lots of cool different things. It's just variable, you know, country by country, exactly what's being offered. Some countries have like a system where it is like, okay, you go to a regional championship and then a nationals and then worlds. A lot of them are doing the online qualifier thing to nationals. So variations, but that's the general, you know, overview of how people get involved. And these are all nonprofit organizations. Not 5% of them completely volunteer run. So if you are so inclined to volunteer, I know they appreciate the help.
No, absolutely. It's I've seen the functional fitness 101. What's the 101?
Yeah, so we have a couple online courses now. We have the functional fitness 101 and then the how to run a competition. They are very, very basic. And that was the point, right? Because we started to have we kind of have federations now in most of the, especially in Europe, right? A lot of the countries that know what functional fitness is, that come from a CrossFit background, they know what this is. But now we're getting the countries in Africa, in different parts of Asia, where the sport is not popular. There's not a lot of CrossFit there. There's not a lot of functional fitness there. There's not really affiliates. There's not a ton of gyms, and they don't know what it is, right? They don't know, really they have no background knowledge of the sport. So this is a super, super basic course that tells you what is functional fitness, and how does IF3 define it, right? What do we define as the different events, and you know what the structure is? How would you get started training? What should you think about? Like, it's meant to be this very high level introductory course to understand, so you could get started in functional fitness. Just online. And the same thing for how to run a competition. Again, very basic, because we have these, you know, these countries that are like, okay, I want to run a competition. What do I do? And you don't think about that much, right? Because most of our people are like, oh yeah, we're coming from the CrossFit space. We've been doing this for years, and now we just want that extra level of governance. But that's great. But we also, there are, you know, all these countries where the sport's not even there yet. And we have to take them back like it's, you know, 2007. Like, okay, how does this work? You know, we're talking about people who aren't even using leaderboard technology to run competitions, that they're like doing it in an Excel spreadsheet, right? And having to, you know, show them, okay, like this is how, let's score it simply, and you know, this is how we program the workouts, and really from the basics.
Yeah, which can be fun. That can be exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. It's, and that's really where you're looking at, like, is your world champion going to come out of one of those countries? No, probably not for a long time, right? But
Mm,
you build the base now, you get it going in the grassroots, in a grassroots way. It's good for their community. They'll start to get some athletes trickling in here and there and become more competitive, and like really truly building a sport from scratch in those countries.
mm. Yeah, no, and great, new
Yeah.
sport. Like, we know functional fitness is the key to everything, and the ultimate, the ultimate movement, really.
Yeah. Yes.
In our opinion, no matter what level you do it at. Gretchen, so the goal moving forward, is there a principal underlying goal other than the recruitment of people into functional fitness? Is there a goal moving forward that is like the primary goal for you guys?
I mean, the stated goal is always like, hey, look, we want to get recognized by the IOC, get the sport in the Olympics.
Mhm.
And that's always going to be the big holy grail, right? And that's going to be kind of the end goal, but it's not, I mean, like, that's such a big goal, right? Like eating, like, what they say, eating an elephant, I guess. You got to do it like bite by bite. And there's so many like little things we have to do. So a lot of our big focus right now is really strengthening and building up the national federations and making sure they get recognized. Recognition used to be super important for our journey towards IOC recognition in the Olympics. That used to be a very big factor. The process has since changed, and it's less of a factor. And now it's more about the quality of the work your national federation is doing, opposed to just having the certificate from your government.
Mm.
Which, when you say it, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. And and it's good, right? Because the national federation is great if you have a certificate from your government that's a couple years old, but you're not doing any work. Who cares?
Yeah, sure.
So focusing on really building these national federations, the government recognition is super important for the funding for them, right? And legitimacy for them. So we try to funnel them all towards that pathway, but really making sure that they're strong, doing the things they're supposed to be doing, having good governance, running these events, getting everything in line, kind of checking all the boxes, because their strength is really our strength.
Mm.
Because if we don't have strong national federations, we don't really have anything to govern, right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
the ones that send the athletes to the events. They're the ones that are making the decisions about the directions that we're going. So that's really our big priority right now, is making sure we're working with each country to try to help make them as strong as possible and supporting their goals, their growth.
Well, and what a goal that will be. Getting more people into legitimate sport of this thing that we all love and we know has potential to be a sport, but everyone's clambering around to try to make it work and to make it a sport. And I think it's already there. Like, you guys have already got it. We just need to, I think, get more eyes on it, get more participation, and get a better understanding of it across the board. But no, you're doing a really good job, and you guys should be all proud of the work that you're doing. I just really want to push it home a little bit more. So I'll be singing from the rooftops the next few months about it all. So watch this space.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Gretchen, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. We've gone over the hour, obviously, like you gave me. But all the best with the moving forward. I'm going to try, if I can, to get to some of the UK and European events over the next year.
Awesome.
As I said, I've spoken to a few people that are involved, whether it's an athlete or within the BF3, and I'm really keen to just give them some camera time, to get some eyes on you guys. But anything we can help with, and I can help with the channel, just let me know.
Yes, that would be great. Yeah, and you should come to some. We'd love to see you at some of the events, right? I know we're a little bit far. Masters are in Australia this year. If you feel like making a check out that way for Worlds, Masters Worlds, and then Worlds will be in Lithuania for the individuals and juniors and the teams. So that one's maybe more in
Is that next year?
That's at the end of this year. Lithuania is December 5th through 7th, and then Australia's November 21st to 23rd, I think.
Lithuania could work. I could drive there, It would take me about 10 hours to drive there. I could get there. Yeah.
There you go.
Might pack the car full of my friends and we'll come and watch.
Awesome.
Nice one. All right, Gretchen, we'll really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on, and all the best with that. And I'll speak to you very soon. Now I'm going to hang up the show, but if you can hold on for one sec, Gretchen, we'll chat.
For sure.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. Make sure you're checking out the website and the Instagram account for the IF3 and your local governing body. Go and make sure you check them out and get involved wherever you can. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you all